thanks, Julie. And I'm really, really pleased to have Julie here because she's a great representative of New Leaf because she understands print and paper and the environment. So I've been thinking about paper for 20 years, and it's kept me interested for 20 years. I'm hoping it'll keep you interested for about 15 minutes. And then we'll see what happens. We're going to go look at a press run out there. And I can talk about this for hours, but I want to keep it relatively brief. We're going to go kind of quickly through some of the slides. And then I'm here for the next couple hours. And if anybody has any more questions, please do come up and talk to me. I call it Pulp Nonfiction because our whole brand strategy is think and smile. When I started the company in 1998, most of the environmental message was think and frown, if you remember. And people were always being told about how to be less bad instead of more good. So what's exciting about New Leaf is it's an opportunity to be more good, and that's really why I'm here. So this little critter is a pine beetle. And this guy is consuming the forests across northern Canada, 3,000-mile long forest. And it's an interesting situation. I love this story because it's a big umbrella story. It's a big idea story. Because of global warming, the population of these beetles is exploding. And they used to die off in the winter, and then in the rest of the year they would kill the weak trees, and they actually served a useful purpose in the ecosystem. Now their populations are growing too fast, and all the brown areas in that slide on the black board are trees that are dying. And it's a story in the Christian Science Monitor, and it points out that the critical factor on whether forestry has a positive or negative impact on greenhouse gases is management of product at the end of life cycle. Are we using recycled fiber? This slide kind of drives the other half of the equation home, which is still landfills are roughly 40% paper. Those two slides together, that's all we need to show you on the problem. Now let's look at the solution. Quick thing on New Leaf, the mission of the company is to drive a shift towards sustainability in the paper industry. In other words, we're glad that in the last 3 or 4 years our competition are launching a lot more green products. In 1998 it was very unpopular, now it's popular, and that's a good thing. And when we started the company, the paper industry was stuck in this type of a chicken or egg scenario, right? It was very hard to shift the industry. It's very commodified, low margin, quality product, etc., and a lot of investment in order to change the way paper's made. So it was kind of stuck in this chicken or egg dilemma. And what New Leaf did is we said, you know what, before we go out and try and create yet another green product, we thought, let's create a positive vision for the industry. Let's at least have something that we're all shooting for, not just, okay, what's the latest green bug? And so we came up with Pulp Nonfiction. These are the key points that we drive home. Number one is sustainable mill design, right? If mills are designed for sustainability, they'll make a sustainable product, and we'll talk more about that. Another key one on this list is partnership. And that's what Julie was talking about. She's very transparent. It's kind of hard for us to ship 1 carton of paper because of the cost. But when we have a partnership like this, it can be very economical. So let's look at the inputs. When you come to sustainable mill design, inputs are the first thing you think about. What's the fiber, right? And everybody knows post-consumer waste is important. The reason it's important is that that's the material that was going to the landfill. So remember the landfill slide. The vast majority of waste paper that ends up in landfill is post-consumer, right? The next category you don't hear about very much, it's called printed pre-consumer waste. And this is material that's been printed but hasn't yet been sold to the end user. So unsold magazines and then waste from a print shop. It's important stuff. It's been printed, it's great to go back into recycling. Farm fiber is something that we're having a lot of fun with. We have products made with various farm fibers in Office Depot right now. And then obviously sustainably harvested virgin fiber, which is what we're all, y'all hear about with FSC and SFI, et cetera. Quick slide on FSC. Everybody know about FSC, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. And a lot of people know it as a big bill you got to pay every year for custody. A lot of people know it as like, God, do we really have to put that bug in our thing? So here's the deal with FSC. It's the best system for sustainable forestry. Now, in their efforts to try and track that sustainable fiber through the supply chain, they've had to set up rules and systems to be able to manage the logo. And that's why it's tedious. That's why it's a pain. Okay, but it is a good system for forestry. They've also expanded to try and make their mark the Uber mark to cover everything. So they have FSC bugs for recycled fiber and then for mixed fiber, et cetera. So the simple answer in FSC is it's great for sustainable forestry. It's okay for paper. It's not necessary. We support it. We don't think it's necessary. The downside is the FSC bug shows up on papers that are anything from light green to dark green. So from that perspective, if you really want to use a really green paper, FSC is good but not sufficient. That's my opinion. And I want discussion, so I mean, if anybody has a strong other opinion, I want to hear afterwards. We talk about it. All right, let's talk about bleaching a little bit. And I'm trying to throw some techie slides in here because I hate giving a presentation that's all air. So those of you that are finding this boring, grab a drink, you know, whatever it is, but I think this is pretty interesting stuff. So paper used to be bleached with chlorine gas, Cl2. Cl2 created dioxins and some of the worst pollutants ever. And that map right there is a US government map, and the red dots are where the highest concentration of organochlorides are, and a lot of them are around paper mills. Now, most bleaching for virgin fiber went from chlorine gas, almost all of it, from chlorine gas to chlorine dioxide, which they call elemental chlorine free. So elemental chlorine free means chlorine compound. It means chlorine dioxide, which is not nearly as bad as the old bleaching, but it's not nearly as good as chlorine free bleaching. Now the good news is, because waste paper processing is relatively newer technology, the bleaching is newer and cleaner. They bleach with peroxide. Yes, that is Cameron Diaz. And yes, she puts hydrogen peroxide in her hair for those blonde streaks. When it bleaches, it breaks down into water and oxygen, right? So no toxics in, no toxics out. You've seen the peroxide in your cabinet. You pour it on a wound, right? It's good stuff. Clean. It does hurt. But it's clean bleaching. So all post-consumer waste in North America is bleached with a chlorine-free bleaching system. So it's kind of another benefit. Green energy, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it because, again, I want to make this a quicker presentation. We can talk about it more. I just want to say two things on it. The Green E logo is really important for certification for the credits that people buy. But I do want to emphasize that nobody's making paper with wind. All right. The most wind you're going to find is actually going into the paper mills, maybe 5% through a utility that happens to have windmills. What people are doing are buying credits to support wind. And it's just from an important transparency thing. So New Leaf used to stick our neck out and say, you know, the only thing you can say is, you know, the energy for this paper, the energy used to make this paper was offset with wind energy credits, where everybody else is saying manufactured with wind power, right? So, but nobody's manufacturing wind power. It's all credits, which is a good thing. It's good to buy the credits. It's just not what's actually powering the paper. All right. It is important to use clean energy. And one of our papers, very quickly, uses gas from a landfill. All right. You've probably heard about this. Some of you heard about methane coming from landfills. So methane is 24 times more powerful than carbon dioxide as a greenhouse gas emission. But it's also a clean burning fuel. So here's a great eco story. You put a hood over a landfill, you're capturing a greenhouse gas, you're sending it to a paper mill, it burns clean, and it avoids having to buy energy off the grid, which is 50% coal. That's pretty good, right? And that's what we use for New Leaf Opaque. All right, and this whole idea of a green mill, is it all pie in the sky or is it possible? Well, it is possible, and there are green mills all over the world. This one happens to be one of the greenest, and they're the biggest recycler in Denmark, and they make most of their paper from waste paper. And what doesn't go into paper goes into cement, because all the clays and fillers, all that nice coated paper, what is all that coating? Clay, right? What happens to that? Well, some people are able to capture it and send it off to another company that makes cement, and that's what these guys do. And then, oh, by the way, it's cost competitive and high quality because the mill's designed to do that. So that's the whole goal of New Leaf. We want more mills to look like this mill. And then I can move to Hawaii. Or Florida. All right, and then I'll leave this for the future. If people are interested in where the mill design is going in the future, we can talk about that too. Again, that's for the longer version of Pulp Nonfiction. This is a fun slide. Anybody seen this ad? Don't raise your hand because I made it up. It's a fake ad, and it's to drive home a point. There's a lot of quick and easy stories around carbon that are circulating. I don't know if you've seen the carbon neutral wine where they offset the shipping. Okay, so what about the manufacturing of the wine and everything else that goes into it? So carbon neutral claims right now are not well regulated. And so this is my big red slide saying watch out because a lot of these claims are not regulated and even the offsets aren't well regulated. So what did New Leaf do to try and tell a better carbon story? Well, we partnered with our biggest customer, which is Office Depot, about 3 hours south of here, right? And by the way, if you're doing a carbon neutral bug, I'm not trying to say it's all bad. So don't, but I'm just saying not all of them are created neutral. We can talk about that. This is a complete life cycle carbon study. It's messy because I didn't want to clean it up for you. I want you to see that it's a really messy process. And we're looking at waste paper collection, trucking to the pulp mill, pulping, trucking to the paper mill, paper making, our distribution, Office Depot distribution, end of use, and then end of life. And this is the snapshot of the card embedded in it. Now here's the cool thing. So we're working with Office Depot. We're going to have a QR code on the ream that will pull up a map with data on all the carbon input at every point in the supply chain. So I think the key thing here is, again, transparency, education, and a positive story. So ultimately, all of this boils down to one thing. It's evolution. We're trying to evolve the paper industry, and we're trying to have a good time while we do it. That's where Think and Smile comes in. And we make it good business for our customers, and that's where you guys come in. And what we discovered, I want to say, I didn't go to business school, so we didn't know what our commitment to sustainability would do for our business, but this is what it does. And one of the things I promised in this presentation is to talk about what's in it for me, like what is the business case. And rather than try and pontificate, it's better just to say, well, this is our personal experience with it. I can't promise you're going to have this experience, but I think you will. If you integrate sustainability into your materials and what you're doing, I can almost guarantee the brand value proposition. It's a great brand value proposition. The other one, the third point, people focus on customers a lot, but I also focus on employees. And you will find that the recruiting costs and the caliber of people that work in your company tends to go up for companies that have well-respected brands that have a good environmental policy. That's a really hard thing to quantify, but it couldn't be more important. So I'm going to go pretty quickly on the New Leaf stuff, just because I want to talk a little bit about the papers, because we're about to go see one of our papers run on press, if those of you want to see it. And the important of this slide is simply that New Leaf is not the company with the green product line and then everything else, right? Everything we sell is green, and our whole goal is to make it mainstream. And this is just transparency, and it's a much higher percentage of recycled content than any company in the paper industry. And this is just a quick snapshot, again, on this whole idea of product innovation. So New Leaf, over the years, has launched the first 100% recycled letterhead paper. And the big brands down the side here are the companies that we partnered with to create these product lines. So we talk about partnership. We're doing some other product innovation, and we could end up partnering with you guys and with designers on some new products as we go along. So every one of these things is a major product innovation. I want to point out that New Leaf Reincarnation, which we did in '98, is still the only 100% recycled MAC coated. Some of these other categories, there's been competing brands, which is what we want to see eventually. And we do get some awards. And this is the New Leaf Eco Audit. There's about 7 million a year in circulation. So what that tells me is that there's a lot of people out there that see it as a good brand value proposition to tell the story of the paper they've chosen to use. And there's on our website, it's very easy to download this an Eco Audit by project. So you plug in, designers can do it for you, you can do it yourself, you plug in the specs, you spit out a little PDF, 3 versions of this thing. And if it's too big, you take the data and make your own representation of it, which is fine. A lot of people choose to show this. And this is a very quick story of really what New Leaf's all about. So we launched in book paper. There were no book papers that were environmentally responsible in 2001. I mean, the best you can get is 30% recycled, 70% fiber from who knows where, unverified virgin fiber sources. Within 3 years, we launched 100% recycled and got the Potters in Canada, and really this changed the whole book printing industry, which is pretty exciting. This is a quick snapshot of the type of companies that are using leading environmental papers. They all happen to be New Leaf paper customers, and they're great companies with good purchasing policies. This is a chart a lot of them use to move from red, which is don't go there, to yellow, transition, and then light green and dark green. These are the ways of categorizing paper. And I'm going to give this presentation to designers. So if any of you want to see it, you contact your rep, and we can pull individual slides, and get to the facts away from the fiction, right? And this is a good one. This slide also is good. This is paper standards for Whole Foods that we designed for them. It's hard to have one little line because different paper types have different standards. They pushed this out to their supply chain. So they ended up telling people that were in their stores, hey, you guys should try and do this too. It's pretty exciting. And now we'll just talk quickly about products, and then I'm done. So first is Reincarnation Mat. I talked about it earlier. It's the only 100% recycled MAC coated made in North America. 60% post-consumer waste, highest post-consumer waste, and chlorine, processed chlorine-free, so no chlorine bleaching. Phenomenal sheet. Half the demand comes from people that like to use uncoated paper, but they want good print quality. And so they end up paying an arm and a leg for one of these, surface treated, whatever you call it, papers. And so a lot of them are going and using reincarnation instead. The other half of the demand is traditional matte. Very bulky sheet. So Pacific Gas and Electric uses it for direct mail, millions of postcards going all over the place. They used to run it on a 130-pound cover, now they're on a 95-pound cover. Same caliper, 100% recycled, no increase in cost. Pure Gloss and Silk, I'll go pretty quickly. These are two sheets, the gloss and the silk. They're the highest recycled content gloss and silk. Beautiful papers, and one of them's on press, so you get to see it. And you know, again, I don't know what else to say. Just we have a lot of customers that love it, and if you look, there's a little itty-bitty eco-audit right here. That's a Slim Jim, and they've been able to somehow squeeze eco-audit in there on the bottom of the Slim Jim to tell the story of the paper. Sakura is a really interesting paper. It's made in Japan. Now, almost all of our papers are made in North America. We only go overseas when not only is the specification unachievable here in terms of the eco specs, nobody can make this here, and the mill itself is uber green. So this mill, about 99% of their fiber is waste paper, the other 1% is chopsticks. They have this recycled chopstick thing, it's freaking cool. So they have this little hopper and they feed a bunch of chopsticks into it, and I have pictures, so I have proof. And it's just a phenomenally green mill. So it's a great story from that perspective. We prefer, and our goal ultimately is to have every paper made here and evolve the mill design. Everest was the first 100% recycled corporate collateral sheet. So writing text and cover, great sheet, Bank of America loved it, tested on every machine imaginable. So it works great. Imagination is one of my favorite sheets because I press check to the white. You know how whites are not all the same? So imagine going to a press check in a paper mill and playing with the dyes to get the perfect white. So we went for the most neutral white imaginable because we think some people are too cool, some are too warm, and this is right in the middle. And it's got a 100 Sheffield, which is a measure of smoothness. It prints phenomenally well. So rather than have some weird surface treatment, we've got a beautiful uncoated and then reincarnation for the coated, and I think that works well. Last two papers to look at are New Leaf Opaque and Pioneer, which are kind of similar. New Leaf Opaque has a little bit of flex in it. It's a little bit lower brightness, so people would see this as a badge of courage. Hey, it's a green sheet, it's got some flex in it. Prints great, low cost, 100% recycled. And then Pioneer is, again, a very low cost, 100% recycled sheet. That's a museum calendar. So it's just showing off that it's not just for the commodity newsletter. Here the museum's doing artwork on it, so prints well. And then there's a whole slew of other stuff that's make and ship. So for large projects, there's some big companies here. Sometimes you're doing big projects, and so there's New Leaf has a history of innovation, and we're able to do some of that type of thing. Last slide, this is fun. This is what's in Office Depot right now. We're taking our message and our products into the consumer products world. By the end of the year, there'll be 200 products in Office Depot with leading eco specs. And that's the banana paper made with byproduct from banana harvest, which, believe it or not, is an issue because there's so much of this stuff. It ends up flooding into streams and decomposing and using up all the oxygen, and basically the water turns gray. So, cool story there. And I think I kept your attention on paper for about 15 minutes. So one more announcement. Yeah. Oh yeah, okay, sorry, two announcements. So we've got a bunch of sort of handouts and samples on that table. There's some really cool little note cards, and then there's sample packs of all the different papers over there. And Julie's around, so Julie'd love to come up here and see you guys with your designers.
After the chocolate chip strawberries.
Thank you, Jeff, very much. We appreciate you guys coming out and doing this for us. I'd like to let you all know that we're committed to the green sustainability factor. We're FSC and SFI certified as well, so and we use soy-based inks, and we're trying to do everything that we can do to help the economy. And we're excited, very excited, to partner up with all of you and having you out here tonight. So thank you very much for coming. Really appreciate it. As Jeff said, we're going to be printing his paper in the back, and we just need to check on that and make sure we're ready to run for you so that y'all can see it.
Quick question. Is there still a percent of increase to deal with a paper like yours versus a regular one that you know you're going to be in like a
the way it works,
whatever, or is it
let's look at
closer?
Cost. So the main driver in cost is the economies of scale. So some of our grades are made to the scale that matches the competing grades. And so in those products, the price is right in there, and 100% competitive. Where it's more expensive is when it's a little bit of a smaller production quantity. Remember that chicken or egg slide? It's very hard to change this industry because of commodification. So some of the products are a little bit more, and those frankly are where the most change needs to happen. But all in all, a lot of our papers are very competitive. And then you work out things like that PG&E thing, where a reincarnation, you can drop basis weight and do